Let me start this off by saying I am not a fan of this game, which I'll get into a bit later. Well, at least so far. And from what I've seen and heard past this point, I don't really know if that's going to change. But I'm saving my full judgment until I've witnessed the story in full. I'm coming to this topic not as a The Last of Us 2 rabid hater or a face-saving fanboy. And those are all extremes, by the way, not to say that everyone on either side is either one of those. I'm here as someone who's watching the room, let's say. Like a glass broke in a room full of kids and they're all just pointing fingers and shouting. I'm here watching the bullshit happen. What I really want to do here is not all of a sudden walk out of the corner of the room and protest my allegiance for one side or the other, but expose a bit of a problem I have with the gaming industry in general. Reviews. Now, again, relax. I'm not on one side or the other. Not here to bash or defend the game. I'm going to talk shit about something relating to the game, but not exactly the game itself. At least I'll try not to shit talk the game. Anyways, if you've been on social media like me, you've likely seen all the Metacritic memes, or the one of the punch, or the choke, or the scene I ain't gonna talk about. And no, I don't mean Joel. Uh, in my opinion, it has been pretty fun and enjoyable for the most part, seeing all the mashups and crossovers and stupid stuff. It's just juvenile, kiddie fun, as per usual with the internet. But something about the reviews have me concerned. Not the memes per se, but the comments and the thoughts that come along with them. People seem to be jumping to one side of the line and losing their fucking voices screaming at the other on the other side. At everyone on the other side. So what if people gave it a 10 out of 10? People have opinions. 10 out of 10 doesn't mean it's a perfect game. Critics like IGN are paid shills. The game's irredeemable. They're lying for good boy points from Sony, and I'm just like, what? Honestly, I'm not hearing a goddamn thing that makes sense. Yes, it is I, JaangoPops, here to be the fucking cool guy and say, when it comes to reviews, at least for this game, and even in some other cases, I think both sides are wrong and emotional, and perfect examples of why not to take reviews to heart. The main things you're going to hear about when it comes to this game, at least around the reviews, is IGN and Metacritic. IGN's opinions don't matter, and we need the user reviews for what I'm saying, so Metacritic will be the subject of the video. The IGN thing was a joke. I'm not about to waste your time with a tour, but Metacritic is a site that displays a game's review score by an average of critic reviews and user reviews submitted to the site itself. On Metacritic, the score, or at least the user score, has been fluctuating quite heavily, which is something I might touch on. But the critic score has remained about a 95 or somewhere in the high to mid 90s. Here's where I'm going to get spoilery and talk about my own feelings with the game, so if you don't want to be spoiled, although the game is out, probably shouldn't listen. There's some ultra omega, not even slightly subtle fishy bullshit going on when it comes to the reviews. Now, listen, I don't personally own, and as such, I'm not playing The Last of Us 2, but I'm here for the story, so in my personal opinion, is it required that I have it? Let me explain myself a little bit. I just see YouTube's to games, let's say, as SparkNotes is to books. If you don't know, if SparkNotes is kind of a site that you can use to look at things, very specific things from books, as opposed to, going through the entire book itself. And if all I need is the general themes or messages of a book, I don't exactly have to read all 500 pages for myself. In the same way, if all I want is a game's narrative, I don't need a controller in hand and multiple hours put in order to get it. Take it from a Kingdom Hearts fan that somehow got caught up with the story 3 months before Kingdom Hearts 3's release. You may disagree with me there, and that's completely reasonable, but please at least let me give my impressions here, because I haven't finished my viewing of the game, but I'm also not playing it myself. So again, here are my impressions on what I've seen so far. Excuse me while I get a drink of water. This is going to be a bit long. Pardon me. The graphics are pretty damn great. Basic bitch comment that pretty much everyone has said, but I need to give both in this case. The gameplay looks fun, like The Last of Us, but upgraded as a sequel should be. And there's a fair amount of detail to the game, which goes back to the graphics and visuals, but also, in a bit of a sense, to the AI. For example, when sneaking around as Ellie, if you take out an enemy and another one is present, Dina, who is there with you in some instances, will take out the other enemy if she has the opportunity. Also, similar to some other PS4 games, and maybe even some Xbox One games, but I'm not entirely sure because I own a PS4. Enemies will talk to one another and react directly if they see a body or see you kill someone, usually by saying their names to the others or screaming it out in some gruesome manner. Nothing major with AI behavior, but it's something neat, I guess. Now, here's my problems. The game has very, very strange pacing. You'll get long sections of story and cutscenes followed by long instances of gameplay. The problem being, from what I've seen, there isn't a solid balance of both. It always seems to be one or the other, at least in the beginning. The gameplay, while fun and enjoyable looking, doesn't have too much variety, even when you get some of the upgrades. Obviously, this is subject to change, and I think the loop, but I think the loop could get a bit boring when it's an average third-person shooter with two buttons when you're up close, that being L1 to dodge and square to attack. Again, at least from what I've seen so far. And the kickoff for the story was pretty garbage. Again, spoiler shit, so if you don't want to get spoiled, stop listening now. Abby, the second character you play as, is running from a horde when she's suddenly saved by Joel. Goes back to Abby's cabin thing or whatever it was, her hideout, whatever, where her group is, and openly introduces himself to this room of like 8 people he doesn't know, along with his brother Tommy, who basically does the same thing. Abby just so happens to have some fucking beef with Joel and shoots him, if not mistaken, and then kills him in front of Ellie, who later tries to come and save him. Now, not only is that lucky as shit, considering that Abby somehow has a vendetta with Joel and just happened to have met him, but it isn't accurate to Joel's character based off of The Last of Us 1. He almost certainly wouldn't have been that open and comfortable with sharing his name in that situation. Again, I'm sure you've heard that again too, just in the same way that you've heard the positive of the graphics, but I do think it's something that needs to be reiterated because this is genuinely how I feel and not something I'm just picking up off the floor. Now, I know this is sudden, but let me take a step back. Like I said, that was just my impressions to get to this point. Notice how even in the short, let's say 10 hours, more or less, give or take, I have positives and negatives, good things to say and bad things. Now, I know it's summer, but let's do some math. Let's say I've got a relatively high number, 14, and a relatively low number, 2. Putting those two together, you would get 16, and to get the average, you divide by 2, the amount of numbers there are, to get 8 out of 10, right? Remember how I had said Metacritic does its scores? Same idea. It takes the average. Here's the thing. If I have high points for The Last of Us 2 and low points for The Last of Us 2, riddle me this. How in the hell did it get a 0 out of 10 or 10 out of 10? Those are two extremes that couldn't have possibly taken everything into account. Now you see what I'm getting at. Let's bring it on back to the video's broader topic, the reviews. On Metacritic, user scores and critic scores are put side by side. For now, since they're much easier to access and, by extension, manipulate, we'll focus on the user reviews, excuse me. Let me just read a few for you. Do not let the user score of this game dissuade you. The Last of Us Part 2 is a masterpiece. The losers giving it negative reviews are a bunch of crybaby douchebags that didn't get exactly what they wanted, so they felt the need to try and tarnish the game's reputation. Do yourself a favor, play the damn game. 10 out of 10. Excuse me, warning just for some of these, I have their names for some and not for others, so I apologize for not being exactly punctual there, but This was absolutely fantastic experience. I know I messed up there. There was a typo, and I'm not correcting typos. Thank you, Naughty Dog. Haters are pathetic. 10 out of 10. The perfect example of how to ruin a game. Thank you, smiley face. 18 periods with one comma right before the 16th period. 0 out of 10. Hear from Gasher, just finished the game. Amazing work. Well written plot, deep characters, beyond expectations. Love it. 10 out of 10. Here's another thing that I'm going to address really quickly. Gasher, and by extension, a lot of these reviews only have one review. Can you guess which game it is? Let's move on. TLO, which I'm pretty sure stands for The Last of Us. The writing is crap. The narrative is trash. Do not buy. I repeat, do not buy. 0 out of 10, 1 review. Gaming moment. Good game. All the reviews are baby raging gamers who have to live in a society with people who aren't mentioned in the Bible. 10 out of 10, 1 review. Shade of Us. Here's an interesting case, and I'll get to why in just a second. I hate it. I waited 7 years for this massive disappointment. Not only they ruined this great franchise, but they did a false advertising. That was on June 24th. That's the day I'm recording this. 2020. 0 out of 10. Here's the interesting thing. I was actually surprised to see that Shade of Us did 2 reviews. Here's the problem though. One of the best game you ever lay your hands on. Again, I'm not fixing I'm not fixing mistakes. Excellent story. The only game in history that has immersive details for everything. 10 out of 10 for Red Dead Redemption 2 on June 22nd of 2020. Now, not gonna lie to you, I don't know the game's release off the top of my head, but I can guarantee you that Red Dead Redemption 2 did not come out anytime close to June 22nd of 2020. A little suspicious, but let's move on. Joe Fisto. Although many are angered by the death of Joel, I feel as though it made narrative sense. Joel never pretended to be a good man and did horrible things. He then paid for his actions. I loved him as a character and can take solace knowing he's with Sarah at least. 10 out of 10, 1 review from this account, and this review was posted on launch day. Another big issue I'll have, but we'll get to that. Cody Jost 393, false advertising really let me down, Naughty Dog. This game is garbage. I'm sorry to anyone who actually purchased this game. My friend that I was watching play it also agreed that this game is garbage. 0 out of 10, 1 review, launch day review. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and say that I didn't cherry pick these. Obviously, I did, but please feel free to look at the site yourself. It isn't as formulated as laser focused as it may seem. There's is not too far fetched from what the site actually looks like right now. From launch day until the day I'm recording this damn video, countless user reviews are being made trying to kick the score down or raise it back up. These of which aren't even fucking reviews. It's people giving absolutely no explanation or elaboration on their scores, and quite clearly doing this because why not? Everyone else is doing it. These people are wrong, I'm right, so I'll just put up my score and invalidate theirs. And now let's go over to the critic side. A fucking myriad of 10 out of 10 perfect scores, 100s left, right, center, and sky. Literally, how? How could this even be remotely possible? Why does, for the most part, especially on release, this game have nothing but extreme and polarizing reviews? Why is this either God's gift to mankind on one side, or the biggest pile of shit since Jump Force on the other? And yes, I added that for no reason other than to slander Jump Force because that game was ass. Fuck Jump Force. Anywho, none of this makes sense. People seem so drastically divided on this game that you'd think we're having a Crisis on Infinite Earth situation where people aren't even playing the same game. My honest opinion, everyone is emotional. I don't completely believe the paid critics things, although you could easily convince me there's a few out there. Shit, you could even convince me there's paid user reviews. I wouldn't put it past people. But when it comes to critics, they aren't stupid or ignorant when it comes to The Last of Us 2. They saw the leaks, or at the very least, they saw the rageful outcry and the business face saving attempts, and they knew they were going to be in for some shit. True or false, one way or the other, critic reviewers knew they were about to be put in the goddamn hot seat by the internet for whatever they thought. So that could have easily just made them want to put out that 10 out of 10, knowing they were damned if they did and damned if they didn't. Knowing what, no matter what their side, just they were gonna have some rabid, emotional people at their throats over what they dared to say about this game. And again, that doesn't describe everyone involved in this game, just those that are a bit extreme when it comes to how they feel. And then the fan reviews. Good God, are you fucking kidding me? The textbook definition of emotionally fueled. Look at the language they're hurling. Crybabies, man-raging gamers, whatever the fuck that means. Naughty Dog shills, SJWs, all they have are fucking playground insults for anyone on the other side of their line in the sand. None of these reviews, the fucking launch day ones especially, actually had any justification for their scoring on Metacritic. Just emotional people fighting a war with name calling and easily manipulated numbers as their weapons. And therein lies my issue with game reviews, at least in this case, in of this manner. They just don't require justification to get passes. On sites like these, where all you gotta do is make an account, type some words, dial in your absurdly high or low score, and boom, you're added to the average like nothing? The validity of your statements need no proof. Any possible worries you have behind closed door don't need to be brought up or assessed. You can just say what you want, whatever you want, however you want to say it, anytime, anywhere, no questions asked. Which is why I personally, truly believe one should never, in any case, never, take reviews to heart. To heart meaning at face value, as law, just something that you think is the definitive opinion or the definitive truth on said topic. At the end of the day, reviews are opinions, but they're supposed to be informed opinions, not biased ones, not influenced ones. The game cannot possibly be a 0 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, especially on launch. You have to experience the full game. You have to see that there are glitches in the game. You have to see that the game does have very good graphics. There are things that you have to take into account, and you just, at least for the most part, can't get the full experience. Like, let's say this, right? Let me go on a bit of a tangent here. Excuse me. Again, I know school's out, but let's do some math. Last of Us 2 is supposed to be anywhere from 20 to 25 hours. As I'm sure you know, there's only 24 hours in a day. In order to get out a fully verifiable review on the exact same day as launch, you would have to either pick the game up immediately, which you can't do from any store, or download it immediately if you were to get it digitally, and play it for the entire day. And in the worst case scenario that it takes you the full 25 hours, the earliest you can get your review out, if you were to go straight from your computer right after playing, is on the 20th. The release day was the 19th. It's just strange to me that somehow on the 19th, all of these 110% verifiable, legitimate reviews are coming out in a manner when the game couldn't even have been completed. Again, sorry, bit of a tangent, but in order to make a matter of fact statement about the game, its appeals and its flaws, its highs and lows, shining achievements, and unfortunate shortcomings. If you want to make a review that it has your opinion in it, that's fine. But understand that whether you're a user or a critic, you can't go full in with a personal rating. You can't let your opinion completely fuel what you're about to say. Hell, you know what? One of my favorite games of all time is Kingdom Hearts 2. I think that game is the pinnacle of perfection when it comes to an interesting story to fun and engaging combat. That shit is absolutely not a 10 out of 10. Maybe in my heart, sure, but I assure you, if you told me to put aside my childhood bias and look at the game critically, I would not return with a perfect score. Because there's a stark difference between my personal and critical review, my personal and critical feelings, simply put. If you're a YouTuber with a following and have an audience that watches you play your games, or you record this like in videos, then feel free to do a video pouring your heart out about your favorite game or losing on your mind about one you can't stand. Hell, I might do the latter for Jump Force. Fuck Jump Force. But seriously, the playing field is just different on sites like Metacritic that are used to show a game's quality as determined by the masses who, by the way, don't have to prove that they played the game. All this to say, all reviews should not be taken at face value. I wouldn't personally use reviews to ever fuel my decision on buying a game or a game's quality simply because anyone on the internet can say anything. Even in the case of a documented or live streamed game playthrough like some YouTubers and Twitch streamers do, you don't have to take that word as law. If it's the story you want, such as myself, observe it for yourself and make your judgment, which is the case that I'm going to be doing for The Last of Us 2. If it's the game as a whole that you want, watch a long play of it, which is a thing on YouTube, or maybe just some gameplay snippets to see if it interests you enough to get it. All in all, I've essentially just given you my opinion on game reviews, which you also don't have to take to heart. But seeing the use of things like Metacritic to shift the tides one way or another bothered me enough to at least try and explain why I think these reviews should not be taken at face value, with a grain of salt and all those other sayings that basically just mean not too seriously. Please feel free to let me know your opinions on the game, the reviews, or both in the comments below. Thank you for listening.